Hi, it's Rob from Gym 10. Hope you're well. Welcome to this restorative stretch training session. Today we are looking at back and hip mobility and stretching those areas. So please grab yourself a drink of water, take a sip, look around your lips and hydrate. And then putting your water safely to the side. Okay, so as always for these training sessions, find a nice quiet room, close the doors, switch your phone off, and give yourselves about 20 minutes just to allow yourself to stretch and relax. Great thing, this training class, you might be able to do it first thing in the morning or do it in the evenings. Try not to do this prior to taking part in exercise. The reason behind it is it will lengthen some muscle groups and maybe find some new points for your ligaments as well. So the best time is in the evenings or first thing in the morning, but if that's not the case, then do use it appropriately for yourself. Okay, close the doors, let somebody know you're taking part in the training session, and let's work out. Okay, so for this training set, you'll need a mat, and ideally you want to be in barefoot for this session. Check around one way, check around the other, make sure you've got plenty of room. From there, stretching and looking above your head, make sure you've got plenty of room here as well. Okay, so from here, let's just work on our pelvis alignment and our feet. Everything is connected from our body at the moment in a standing position through our feet. So important to get it straight. We're going to keep our feet nice and parallel, ideally with the big toe marginally turning, second toes completely parallel. We're going to work up through our ankle and knee lift movements. So we're going to drive our pelvis forward, bring our shoulders back and lift our chest. We're going to rock all the way through the bridge of that foot, trying to lift up through our torso, and now we're going to let our shoulders drop back into position. So we're working through here, we're lifting high, slowly lowering back down. Glutes nicely engaged. Now, as we're doing this, I want you to try and get a bit more lift of your body. You should be able to get high on your tiptoe and then roll over that knuckle. Now, as you're doing it, you want to feel the big toe to the little toe are engaged to the floor as much as possible. And you're creating that rotation through the foot. Now, the other part is obviously when you get to the highest point of this toe lift, as the knuckles are rolling over, the little toe will have to come off the floor. Now, as you're doing that, if you can feel your little toe is engaged too much to the floor at the highest point, then you know that you are creating ankle movement that is inefficient to walking. Okay, so if you're still feeling your little toe is down to the ground as you're plantar flexing forward, you'll be creating what's called a super flexion of the foot. So you're lifting that big toe up. And that's completely ineffective because if it's still in contact there, you've got at least about 30 degrees of superflexion going on that floor. And then you're just going to work down to the right side and then lift back up. Now, as we're doing this, we're going to take that hand, instead of just reaching down to the side, we're going to bring it onto the side of our hip. And whilst keeping our pelvis and our hips and our chest still facing directly forwards, you're going to give a little bit of a shunt to that movement out to the side and feel that lengthening through the side of the hips. Now, as you do it, try and retract your shoulder blades and lift your chest a bit further. So you can get a little bit more side movement, so that lateral movement here, reaching out to the side. The other hand can roll up and go on your chest and go down the side of your body, whichever feels comfortable. But just do everything you can to move that pelvis. Now, I want you to feel like the two parts of your hips, the two bony prominences. If you can't quite feel them, just push into your thumbs so that they're feeling like it's standing at the level here. Now, as you're doing this, as you tilt to the side and you're still keeping your pelvis square and forwards, I want you to feel that that thumb stays into the side of your hip and is up higher than your right thumb down here. You want to feel that hip lift and that rotation. And as you do this, you should find a big stretch through the side of your thigh. Now, if you can't feel it, once you get to the side bit here, try and hitch this hip up even further. Let it come back down, let it rock again. So you rock and you hitch. Now, as you rock and hitch, the tendency here is going to be allowing rotation of the torso. I don't want you to do that. I want you to keep the shoulder blade back and then hitch. And as you're doing this, you're going to force the QL, the quadriceps lumbrum here, into firing. And that pulls from the base of the 12th rib to the top of your pelvis. Now, the idea behind it is it's going to allow some movement in your hip and in your lower back and that lower lumbar. And the reason behind this, in our day-to-day, we just don't do very much side-to-side or coronal plane movement. Again, really try and lift that hip. And if it feels stiff, this is definitely a morning exercise for you. Shake it out. Let's just go back and check our feet. Toe, fist gap apart. Rock down to the right side. Come back up nice and strong. Now let's bring that hand, same hand that you're rocking to on the top of that pelvis. Use the other one as well as your spirit level, making sure this is nice and flat here. Rock and lift. Now, after you've done a few of these, I want you to now close your eyes and do it. Can you keep your balance? Now feel which hip is finding it harder, which is giving you more or less range. And the one that's giving you less range, I want you to predominantly hit that side a bit harder. So you're going to drive that hip in. For me, I'm feeling this lengthening, certainly more predominant as I lean over to my left side and my right leg, right hip is extending here. But you pick what works for you and find that extension. Keep rocking it, keep moving it, keep working it here. As you're doing it, keeping your shoulders back into position, your chest lifted, rock through to that one side. You might find it's quite a big, deep stretch. Keep working it, keep working it. And again, you're trying to keep your pelvis square and straight, your chest straight, your chin lifted, and then we're trying to really drag this hip up. Now, as you drag the hip up, I want you to now check, are both feet completely flat to the floor? Now, for you to be able to know that, your big toe to your little toe and your heel will need to make a tripod. And they're taking an equal third of the load. Now, if you're feeling you're squashing your big toe more, you're more on the lateral side of your foot. Again, that's going to create supination of the foot, which we're going to want. Slowly bring it back up and rock and tilt. Now, by doing that exercise, in my opinion, you've completely freed off the sacroiliac joints in its coronal plane, side to side flexion. That's where your spine joins into your pelvis complex. Okay, so from here, we're going to bring our hands on top of our thighs, keep our fists gap apart. We're going to then drive our pelvis forward and we're going to lift our chest. We're going to drop our shoulders back into position and then we're going to grab, if we can reach, one hand on top of the other. We're going to lean back and allow an extension through the hip flexors, through the front of the thigh. Now, take your time and try and relax your body. Maybe adjust your stance so your feet change position on the floor slightly. Squeeze your glutes in nice and tight. Lift your chest bone up to the ceiling. Allow your shoulder blades to come back and depress, go downwards. So if you're holding your shoulders high, I need you to try and relax more. Adjust your hand position, one hand on top of the other. Lift your chin up, nose back, and feel the stretch and lengthening through the abdominals. See if you can lean back just a little bit further whilst keeping it safe, relevant, and effective for you. And it doesn't matter which hand you chose, because in a minute we're going to swap. We're going to slowly drop the chin down on the chest. We're going to curl through the spine to go back into standing. And then take note. So my right hand was on top of my left. My left is now going on top of my right. Again, I'm going to retract the shoulder blades, bring the chest up and back, lift my chin backwards, push my hands down so they're resting below the left base of my spine. Again, allow the shoulder blades to retract back and the shoulders to be depressed down. Feel your big toe to your little toe down to the floor. Again, occasionally just take a little march on the spot just to relinquish your feet. Take a big deep breath in and a big sigh out. Again, feel where it's safe, relevant, effective for you. If it feels too much of an extension, come back off it just slightly. And slowly now releasing the chin, come back down on the chest, allowing the shoulders to protract back and forwards, and releasing off the lower back. From there, take a step around. You should feel a big change in your posture. You should be feeling your standing, hopefully a little bit better. Come back into our frontal plane movement, or coronal plane movement. We're going to let the hips just slide side to side again. We're going to keep the chest lifted. Just going to rock side to side and get as much movement as you can. From here, releasing, we're going to go down to the floor. So on this position here, if you struggle with your knees or your hips as well, grab yourself a pillow or a cushion now, because you might want to kneel onto it as well. Okay, so let's drop down here. Camera, see if I can get that camera to move with us. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we imagine we're on two railway tracks. And our left foot stays on one and our right stays on the other. Again, use the cushion underneath the knee if you need to. Now in this full extension position here, you want to feel the big toe to the little toe. They're in connection with the floor. The knuckles are down to the ground. The hands on top of the hips, and we lean forward. Trying to feel that big release out the front of the hip flexor. Now, if you go too far into it, you're going to find this knee is going to track over the tiptoe. So if the flexibility is good for you here, reward yourself by taking the front foot forward by half a step. Again, bring your shoulder blades back into position, bring your hands on top of your hips. Allow the hips to drive forward, the shoulders are back into position, and the hip flexor is extending. Here, allow that front foot to step forward again. Keep your chest up high, shoulders back into position. Big stretch through the front of the thigh. Slowly allow that stance to come back up to straight. Let's change legs. So we bring the right leg forward. Bring the big toe to little toe down to the ground, and allow the hips to shunt forward. Let your shoulder blades come back into position, remembering to depress the elbows and the shoulders down towards the ground. Lift your chest, lean back, slight arch of the foot, of the front foot, and then feeling yourself arch through the lower back as you lean your shoulders back and down towards the ground. Take the lead leg forward again, so if your knee is over your tiptoe, then you need to step your front foot forward again. Feeling your back foot, the big toe to the little toe, is completely down to the ground in terms of the knuckles and on the tip of the toe if you can. If you need a bit of support beside you, grab that wall and allow yourself to tilt forward again. With a nice big isometric stretch all the way through the front of the left thigh. The shoulder comes back. We now lift the chin up towards the ceiling for the extension further. Take a moment to feel what's happening in the front of that right foot. The big toe to the little toes, flat to the floor. Toes to the heel, down to the ground. Slowly allowing yourself to push off that lead leg before dropping both knees to the ground. Coming down onto your front. Taking your arms out wide. And allow both shoulders to just reach down to the floor. From here, you're just going to wiggle your hips and feel the top of your pelvis down to the ground. You're going to stretch your arms out just a little bit wider, opening the fingers out. I want you to take note of what you feel. Can you feel all of your arm down to the ground and the shoulder down to the ground? If you feel that your shoulder is lifted, you need to work on your pec and chest flexibility. If you're feeling at the moment your hips are off the ground, you need to work on your hip flexor stretches. If you're feeling that your knee is kind of encouraging you to flex your knee, and kind of raise your toes up slightly, i.e. there's little pressure in your toes, then your hamstrings need more attention. From here, take your hands back to your press-up position. Raising up onto our knees, we'll take our left knee forward and extend our right leg. We're going to drop down into our forearms and feel a lovely deep stretch through the outside of the left hip. As you do this, you're going to rock slightly onto the right side or the right arm and then slowly back onto the left. And you're going to keep rocking and rolling side to side. So gentle, easy, side to side rocks and rolls of the hip. From here, slowly releasing, swapping it over. Again, rocking down into the forearms, rocking side to side on the hips. See if you can extend that left knee just a little bit further. Allowing yourself to roll forward on that shin and over that knee slightly before pushing the hip back and down each time. Three more here. Two more. And one, and release. From here, taking yourself through into standing. And from there, taking your feet so that they're a fist gap apart. moving your mat out of the way, it's sliding. And you're just going to flex from the hips, hands on top of your thighs, stick your bottom back for the lengthening through the back of the legs. Stretch the lower back and the back of the hamstrings. Now you get that stretch at your lower back because the hamstrings are lengthening. And the connection point is on your pelvis. So as you're doing this, you want to try and relax your legs. Feel your big toe to your little toe flat down to the floor. And that lengthening through the spine. Allowing a slight flex of the knees before standing and stretching and lifting, taking one hand on top of the other, leaning back, pushing up high, tilt one to the left, coming back up, tilt one to the right, and relax. Good work. Hope you enjoyed that training session. Really, really well done. As always, grab your water and hydrate after that. It's a good stretch and a good lengthening. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. Did a live, hashtag live, did a replay, hashtag replay, and as always, if I can help, get in contact. See you next time for the next one. Cheers. Well done, team, very good.